This video is about INFP weaknesses and challenges. It's going to be structured the same as my previous video, which was about INFP strengths. First, we are going to talk about weaknesses that are caused by our cognitive function stack, and then we are going to talk about more general weaknesses, and I will try to give you tips to overcome these weaknesses. What I want to quickly say about these weaknesses and challenges is that it's the most common challenges that INFPs might encounter, so it's not like 100% sure that you will have these weaknesses and challenges. But if you do recognize yourself in some of these traits, just know that it's not definitive, you can improve. So this video is just to be more aware of certain things that you might do, that you might encounter, and by being aware of them, we can work on them and improve. So the first thing we have to talk about is our third cognitive function, which is called introverted sensing, SI, and it's also nicknamed memory. So basically it's the function that collects data, but it's all related to the past, to how we already behaved, to what we experienced. The problem is that when we enter an FI-SI loop, which is using our first cognitive functions, which is introverted feeling, and instead of balancing it with our extroverted intuition, which is gathering data from the outside world, when we stick to our internal world, we can get stuck. And what it actually means is that we can become too set in our own ways. We are becoming afraid to take feedback from the outside world. And what it can do to an extreme point is that you can shut down and you can tune out the outside world because you don't want to experience new things. You just want to figure out with your own past, with your own experiences. And you might be afraid to go out, to take risks, and it can even lead to become physically shut in, and you can stay at home and you can really avoid to go outside. So the way to avoid this, and you will recognize it because it's typically that situation when you're trying to figure out something that you haven't experienced yet, but by referring to past experiences and without being willing to experience the outside world. So remember that in that case, the only thing to do is to use your second cognitive function, which is exploration. So you have to explore and to gather data from the outside world. The second situation that INFPs might find challenging is due to the fourth cognitive function, which is TE, extroverted thinking, and which is also called effectiveness. And it's basically the ability to get things done in the outside world. So this is not our strength. So when we try to rely too much on this, we can get frustrated. And usually it can also come up when you're really stressed, when you have used your authenticity too much and when it needs a break. This function kind of comes up instead, and suddenly for an INFP who is usually very easygoing and accepting, it becomes really important to have an impact on the outside world. And it can come up as passive aggressivity, manipulation. So the solution in that case is to give a rest to your authenticity function and to really use your effectiveness, but in a very easy way, not in a very complex way, because you will get more frustrated. You will know when you've reached that point because it will feel like you've hit a wall. So the only thing to do is to really forget about your current project and focus on getting things done in a very simple way. So it can be 30 minutes of cleaning the house or progressing through your to-do list. So it's all a matter of leaving your emotions and really get things done, being effective in the outside world. So that's it for the main cognitive functions. Now we are going to talk about more general weaknesses and challenges that we can encounter. The first one is that INFPs are idealists and they can become too idealistic, which means they can have too unrealistic expectations. And obviously when these expectations are not met, then they can end up frustrated. So INFPs can improve on that point by remembering that reality is not perfect and that sometimes we have to lower our expectations. The next challenge is that INFP can come up as really private and they are most likely to go into hermit mode. With this, they also struggle to express their feelings, So they are very difficult to get to know, and they can be perceived as cold or distant as well. The main reason for that is that INFPs are introverts, and there is really a lot going on inside, but it's not very showing on the outside. The next challenge is that INFPs might often feel lost. Indeed, they are also called the wanderer or the seeker, because INFPs enjoy asking themselves questions about life, about the meaning of life, about what's behind the scene. And the answers are not always obvious. And INFPs also rely a lot on their feelings and how they feel towards something. And it can be sometimes hard to navigate all this sea of feelings. And because INFPs tend to stay inward and not use their exploration system sometimes, they can end up feeling stuck and lost. My personal experience on this is that we should not try to figure out everything by ourselves, and inside we have to explore, we have to be willing to make mistakes, and we have to remember that every step we take will bring us something. We will learn something about ourselves, about the world, and we will have a clearer vision. I know that we enjoy asking ourselves questions, existential questions, and I also know that sometimes it can be tiring, because sometimes we just think, can I just have the answer for this, please? And it's not happening. So it's kind of a paradox here. Another challenge that is quite related is that we often feel misunderstood as INFPs. And the reason is really very simple. It's that we don't even understand ourselves sometimes. If we are lost, it's obvious that people will not be able to understand us very well. So it can be a curse sometimes, but it's also a part of our personality, so we might as well embrace it. Another challenge that this can imply is that we can have the decision-making process a bit slower than other personality types. And the reason is that we usually don't know what's the right decision until it feels right to us. We are not very relying on logic here, and most of the time we will not know if the decision was right until we make it. And another point is that because you know what's right for you when you feel it, it's also hard to explain it to other people, and they can question your choices, and it can make you question your choices. So my advice for this would be trust yourself, and don't be afraid to make a mistake, because try to see it as exploration and as learning. The next challenge for INFPs, and I think you will all agree with me, is that they struggle with procrastination. Indeed, when we feel like doing something, it's like nothing can stop us. But when we don't feel like it, it's really hard to push through. That's why we work more in bursts of energy instead of a constant pace. And that's why we also struggle with time management. I don't know about you, but for me, I'm always either on time or a little late. But it's really rare that I'm early. That would be interesting to know. That. Let me know in the comments if you're early or late most of the time. That would be funny to know. So another challenge that is quite related is that for INFPs, motivation can fade pretty quickly. Because we are project starters, we are really motivated when we feel like it, we feel like it can go on for months, but it's not always the case, so we struggle to find the motivation to push through. An easy fix for this situation is to remember why you started, and also to set external conditions that will force you kind of to push through and to go until the end of the project. If that's something that is really important to you, you should set these external forces right from the beginning. The next challenge is that INFPs extremely dislike criticism and confrontation, conflict. This can have two problems. It can lead INFPs to stay in situations that are not right for them for too long, and it can also prevent them from confronting someone when they need to have a discussion, but they don't want to disturb the peace or the harmony. The next challenge is that they can often struggle with dark thoughts. Because they are idealists and perfectionists, they have really high standards for themselves, and anything that can go wrong, they can blame themselves for it. So they can be too hard on themselves. And because INFP can feel things more deeply, they have very high highs and they have also very low lows. The next challenge is that because INFPs are always looking for patterns and things in different directions, they can jump to things very quickly, and it can be hard to verbalize their thoughts. So you might find that as an INFP, you struggle to express yourself when you have to talk to someone. But on the contrary, INFPs tend to be good at writing. Another challenge that INFPs might face is that when they are caught in something that really interests them, they can really forget about the practical, about the mundane. So they might like forget to eat or forget to drink, and forget everything they were doing, because the thing that they just discovered, they need to learn about it, they need to read, or they need to work on this new project. So they can really tune out the external world and the basic needs. And the final challenge and weakness of an INFP, and I'm talking about this one last because I think it's the most important, is that INFPs tend to have more problems with self-esteem and self-love, because they question everything. They must struggle with people socially. They can feel weird because they are misunderstood, because we don't think like the majority of people, because we don't have the same expectations. So it can really quickly lead to INFPs being isolated and feeling down, depressed, and leading to have a poor self-esteem. So my main advice for this is to really accept yourself as you are. Know that you have some strengths and know that you have some weaknesses, but you can always work on them if you're not happy about it. And a quick tip for self-esteem is to really pay attention to your mental chatter in your head. And you will probably notice that it's not very nice. Like, if you had a friend talking to you like that, he wouldn't be your friend. I really encourage you to pay attention to this and watch for thoughts like, you're stupid, you're an idiot, I will never make it, you suck, you know, all the things, and try to be just gentle with yourself, accept yourself, try to love yourself for who you are, and know that your opinion in the end is the most important one. Really try to remember that you are enough and there is nothing to change about you unless you want to. I think the most important thing is to let go and to really accept who you are and not try to be perfect. So that's it. I hope this video was helpful, and that in the future it will be useful when you become aware of one of these challenges, and hopefully you will have some tips to overcome them. If you've not seen the video about INFP strength, and if you're interested in it, you can watch it here. As usual, thank you for being here, thank you for watching. I hope you got something from this video. If that's the case, you know what to do. Comment, like, subscribe to my channel. I always really appreciate it. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next one. Stay safe. Bye-bye.